Hello and welcome to Africa Today. I am Esther Mokwariola. Often described as a region of hope and resilience, Africa in recent years has evolved to the point where millions of people unconsciously live, work and move about with the mindset that survival is more important than safety. From poorly trained drivers on the road with devices not fit to be called vehicles, to gas plants situated at the center of a residential area just waiting to explode, daily incidents and accidents speak volume of a continent where safety standards are almost non-existent. And so we ask, what are your thoughts on safety standards and adherence in Africa? You can join the conversation and share your thoughts with us on Twitter at TVC News NG. Well, we'll take a report now, and Africa Today will be right back. Welcome on board.
Burnt vehicles, dark, thick smoke billowing into the sky leaves no one in doubt about the tragedy that took place here. A tanker laden with petrol was said to have exploded on the Otedola Bridge along Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, engulfing more than 50 vehicles. Onlookers watched with teary eyes as the inferno consumed passengers who couldn't make it out of their vehicles.
To seize. Okay. This trailer failed brake and it was given a sign. People that not to try to escape. So there was a tipper that is here. So he used that tipper to wedge himself. So when he used that tipper, so he was trying to come back to use his covert to wedge himself. Maybe he told her to his side. That was there. As when this is that fell downwards, that was when I came out. But 30 minutes ago, it exploded.
Like how many cars do you think?
30 seconds. Yeah? When you go down there, you see many cars. More than 80 cars.
Tanker fell. Immediately it fell down, I opened the door and come out to watch what is going to happen. Immediately I see that the other man in my front was trying to turn. I told the man, leave your car, leave your car. He didn't answer me. The next thing I look at, I saw petrol. I jumped to the other side and run away.
The State Emergency Response Squad had their hands full moving the burnt bodies from the scene. The Lagos State Emergency Management Agency and other relevant agencies got to work to recover more victims in the incident.
This afternoon, there was a call to the call center that there's an accident on Otedola Bridge, and we activated the emergency response team, which of course included the ambulance service, the fire service, RRS, the Federal Road Safety Corps, and other team members.
The Lagos Police Command has also deployed 500 policemen to help in crowd control. So far, 9 persons have been confirmed dead, with 4 critically injured.
Welcome back. It was a tale of fire, tears and 2 African cities last Thursday as Kenya mourned the death of about 15 people and 70 injured in Ginkoma fire in Nairobi. The same day, a petrol tanker exploded in Lagos, Nigeria and left no fewer than 12 persons dead. So let's say it was a case of carelessness or simply blame it on negligence, but it is the avoidable loss of lives in recent weeks that have continued to raise concerns on maintenance culture and safety standards across Africa. So joining me in the studio to discuss this, I have Ehi Eden, Coordinator, Occupational Safety and Health Africa, that's OSHA Africa. And on Skype, I have Adegboyega Adebayo, Occupational Safety and Environment Practitioner in the oil and gas sector. Good to have you both on the program.
It feels so good to be here.
Thank you very much.
Now, let me begin with you now, Mr. Eden. Looking at your role as a coordinator of OSHA Africa, and I presume you say, before we came on the show, you're manning about 33 countries. What exactly is the problem with these countries that you are so far, monitoring under your leadership?
Well, occupational health and safety in Africa will not strive if we don't have leadership commitment. Occupational health and safety is a function of leadership, it's driven through leadership. And across African countries, we find out that the problems are all the same. government of each country have signed treaties with ILO. They haven't ratified those.
ILO, that's International Labour Organization, right?
We haven't ratified those treaties. And when it comes to domesticating these treaties into our local laws, it becomes a problem. And because we have not been able to do that, you find out that most countries are working without documented standards. That's why we always say when there is no law, there is no offense. Until we make health and safety to become an integral part of our laws, we'll continue to have what we had last week Thursday. If we must stop this spate, like you saw that it happened simultaneously in both Nigeria and Kenya, if we must stop this spate, our leaders have to come together and take responsibility, because when each worker dies, leave the rules, when each worker dies by virtue of going to work to earn a living, it's a colossal loss to a nation, let alone when we stand and watch many people die because of carelessness that could have been avoided. These issues are all highly preventable if government takes responsibility. The people some people that died, we just, find that happen to be on the street at that time of the day.
Right.
But what is difficult is checking the trucks that are laden with fear that leave a depot or where the truck has been loaded. It's a very simple thing. Let each truck be profiled to an owner. Let each man that certifies a truck fit to be on the road document that he then certified this truck fit. I've loaded it, I've checked it, I've certified it fit to be on the road. So that when things like this happen, we won't be looking for who to hold accountable, who responsible. When things happen, somebody should be held accountable. Because here we have loss of lives for the past how many days right now? We have not heard specific statements. Yeah, somebody that will be held responsible. And this is where occupational safety is hinged in Africa. You find out that other regions of the world have been able to take health and safety from the leadership point of view. You go to Europe, you have what you call the EU OSHA. It's not a matter of country right now. It's a matter of the region. European Union took it as a part of their responsibility, and they're driving it around all the countries that belong to EU. We have African Union. What are we doing? This should be what African Union should be driving. In the seat of African Union in Addis Ababa, there should be an occupational safety desk where issues, policies are reviewed, data are brought about. Where we have issues that come up and policies and standards are made and distilled down to other countries.
So if you know all this, why are we having problems where in most African countries, safety is an issue?
Everything you do across African countries is predicated on leadership. Let's not get it wrong. We don't exist in isolation. We are just independent consultants. Those of us who went to study this discipline, and we are working within this field. I'll give you an example. Now somebody died in the workplace. Which law are we going to have to hold this guy, who's the CEO of a company, where somebody died based on negligence or carelessness or lack of duty of care? Which law do we have to penalize this guy in the court? So when you look at it holistically, it's all complicated because there has to be law first.
Right. Because
the law that we have to hold on to, that's what we can use to penalize an individual who was negligent in his duty of care towards an employee within the workplace. But when those laws are not there, what are you going to do?
Now, Adegboyega, from what Ihiden just pointed out, leadership is a problem in most of these African countries where, safety is negligible. But in your own opinion, what else do you think contributes to the, poor safety standards we find in our workplaces and, of course, around our environment?
Aiden has said, it actually boils down to basically leadership. And he also mentioned something that if most of these things are things that that's been formulated in other countries, but it involves our leadership in Nigeria to actually make it a standard. Take, for example, of what happened on Thursday on the Todola Bridge. From the video, you are seeing that a tanker is spilling a crude already, and a driver is trying to wage it, which is very wrong. Like he said, we need to have a body that will be responsible for satisfying trucks. All this, so you sign it, you put your name, social companies satisfy this truck. So when such issues happen, you can fall back to those industries. But before we get to that, we need our leaders to take the responsibility very well. Take, for example, in the medical line, on our own sector now, take for example in the upstream sector, if you are coming to our facility, we need to get a document that shows that Dr. A of so-so hospital certified that you are fit to work in the facility. The same thing has to happen in such industries too, where we have such regulations that has been pragmatically followed to the letter. Imagine a truck that is not being checked on the road, where people, masses are applying the roads. What are the things that are guiding those trucks to prevent the lives of people? So those things we need to actually address it from the leadership commitment. That is why in safety, leadership commitment is the key that drive a safe environment. Even in your own, let's bring it down to our own practice. Like I said, by my colleague said, we are just a consultant, but we can only do our part. But we need policies from the government that will trickle down to the lower level, where you can say, okay, you understand what he said. There's a law that says that, okay, before this one can happen on the road, you need to have this, and this. Let me bring you back now. Those drivers now, like I said, we have people that are in charge of driving on the road. Are you qualified? Are we actually enforcing that policy that says that you must be competent enough to drive such particular trucks? So those are the things that is a problem. So we need leadership commitment to put the legs on the ground so that we can actually and also enforce this thing and trickle the information down to the latter.
All right, let's quickly go on a quick break now. You're watching Africa Today, and we've been looking at safety standards and adherence in Africa, going by the latest developments across the continent. Welcome back. Now, beyond road accidents and outdoor destruction, it is estimated that people in developing countries are exposed to more than 80% of the global occupational hazards. And according to international labor organizations, Africa has one of the highest work-related mortality rates, yet most of the occupational injuries are never detected or reported. So, Mr. Hidian, looking at this situation now, you've said everything while we, at the first part of this program. But if I were to recall, there was an incident that happened where in an upscale apartment, there was a gas plant situated, and people wouldn't have thought it to, happen. Let me put it this way, people who have who are enlightened will have such a petrol station or a gas plant situated in their neighborhood. So is it more or less like people don't have the safety culture imbibed in them, that when you see things like this, when you see petrol stations around your neighborhood, why don't we cry out, make noise, as in kick against these things that can give us a bit of, hazards in future?
As you were narrating that, I was smiling inside of me. Who do you report to? Because, yeah, that's an elitist environment, but who do they cry out to? And that's where it comes back to what I will be discussing. Where is the body that they will cry out to? We don't have. Because in developed countries, let's use America as an example. That's where you have the OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administrators. When you have such thing happening in your environment, you make an anonymous report and you send to OSHA. OSHA comes in the very next day and they see that place up and relocate that company from that place. The company was built. I mean, it didn't just come into that place in one day. The land was allocated. The reason that the land would be used for, the kind of company, was documented. There are town planners. People approved that place for a gas plant to be built. When they were approving, individuals don't approve location of people to build such gas plant. It is still the government and its agencies that allocated and approved that property to be used for gas plant as a gas plant in factory. But what were they expecting? So at the end of the day, what happened? You still blame it back to government, because if you knew how volatile a gas plant is when it's put side by side in residential estates, what's happened on that day? It has been a hazard that was waiting for when to erupt, and when the time came, it erupted. But I tell you today, it's not just that the hazard happened, the gas plant is back to operation. Now, this is the problem we have in this country. When things happen, I mean, this is not the first time we saw petrol tankers overturning and killing people in Nigeria.
Right.
Have we ever found a solution to the problem, or even taking the drastic action? When you cannot learn from incidents that happen, you can have a recurrence of such incidents. Let's even sit down. I mean, I was even thinking that when this happened, government should have a stakeholders meeting. Call everybody, let's sit down and have a round table discussion. How do we stop this? And start looking at what are the real problems. It is easy when you identify the problems and know what are really the causations, then you know how to fix it. We don't even know what the problems are. Let me even take from this point. Why do we have all the tankers that have to feed every filling station in this country come to Lagos in the first place? We had refineries in other parts of this country. We had Kaduna, we had Port Harcourt, we had Warri refineries. If they were working, you will not have many petrol tankers come to Lagos to take fuel. Now, you shifted risk that would have been dispersed, evenly distributed across the country, those locations.
Right.
You've domiciled those risks to only Lagos State. And Lagos is not complaining, because if I were to govern this state, that would be my first cry. Fix those refineries and take these tankers off my routes. Because what you have done, those tankers that would have been in Warri, that have been in Kaduna, that have been in Port Harcourt, they all find. Do you know that a tanker that will need to carry fuel from here to Maiduguri will drive all the way from Maiduguri to Lagos State? And even the port, outside the fuel tankers, we have the containers that keep falling off.
Right.
We have, I mean, there was a time in this country where port activities were distributed. You had Calabar was being used, Port Harcourt was being used, Lagos was being used. What is wrong in distributing these vessels to those locations? When you do that, you have taken care of more than 60% of the problem. You take these trucks off Lagos Road so that the risk can be reduced. It's a simple thing.
It is a simple thing. And, you know, it takes a lot of will on the part of the government and, of course, the people to support and a good cause that would, you know, mean well for the entire society and in general. So, Adegboyega, looking at this, you know, particularly, it seems more of a safety neglect on the part of the government and parts of the people. But when you look at the constant, the same accidents happening again and again and again, and then the government comes out to say, okay, because of this, we'll take this action. Take, for instance, we have, you know, not once, not twice, trailers fall off the bridge, and you have government coming out to say, okay, by this time to this time, this is the time the trucks will ply. Outside this, you'll be arrested, and all of the other, you know, implications to it. But how can we ensure that when the government gives such directive, it is complied with, so we do not have any reoccurrence of such accidents again in future?
Yeah, thank you very much. Like my colleague have said, we need to enforce all those things. That I'm sure sometimes in the past there was something like that was said that from particular hour of the day, I think from 7 or 9 p.m. that the other car users should give the road, should leave the road for the trucks. But was it enforced? It was not. Because over time, before you know it, it was turned down, and the whole thing, everybody was on the road. It is very bad. Because let's look at it. Recently, along that Otodola road, there was a time we had a gas plant that got exploded, which we got the information. And have we ever documented what happened to those incidents? Do we even have the facts? If you go to our archive now, do you have incidents history that we can say, okay, this happened, this is what we do, this is what we were able to mitigate to ensure that this does not occur. But what we said now, like you said, time for trucks to move. It was said sometimes like that in the past that, okay, from social time, leave the road for the work, every truck. But it was not enforced. What do? We need government to put an enforcement on ground so that people can comply. If it doesn't comply, if they pound those trucks, seize the whatever product is carrying, and make sure that the needful is done, you see that everybody will comply. Let me take you to our sector, the upstream sector. I'm sure then can bear me a witness. You'll be surprised that DPR will not give you a notice at that sector to come to your facility to come and do an inspection. And if they see anything that you have done that is against the regulations, they seal you out. Because what? You are violating the standards. But it's as if the only areas that we are looking at that safety as an important area is the upstream sectors because of the level of things that we are doing. But it goes to across board on the road and what have you. Put the policy down. I was talking to a friend a couple of days back when he called me concerning the issue that happened on Tedola Road. He said, why are tankers moving on the road at daytimes when the normal things are moving? I said, is there no dedicated route for tankers for them to use? I said in Nigeria, such does not happen. Even there was a time they give us policy. So we need our government to come down to the table and say, okay, fine, let us make safety, like, for instance, we have several ministries. Like, is even our Department of Transport, are they working to put guidelines? Like, okay, trucks. Okay, first of all, let us check. Like you said initially, these are the things, criteria you need to meet before your truck can be fit to even operate. These are the capacity and what have you. They will not put other policies on ground. Are we going to say, okay, let us find a dedicated route for them to pass? Or are we going to say, like my colleague said, let us distill the hazard from Lagos? We have other areas, other states that we have ports or whatever they can be loading from. Yes, we put all those things that then the government now puts their feet on ground and say, this is what it is. If it's not like that, then we start enforcing so that everybody, the marketers, whatever they have, will be able to say no. If this didn't happen, when they take one or two as scapegoat and say the policy is on ground for us to implement, now start the implementation. By the time they say Mr. A has violated the laws, before you know, everybody will sit right. Let us even divert away from these tankers. Look at our trucks. Most of them, if you are going on the road on the express.
Let me quickly come in here now. But if you're to look at, to cap it all up, what would you say should be the right step the government should take? Because, definitely it would seem to be having a long way now ahead of us to get this done, maybe in the right way. But what steps should we take? What, the first step, second step, what should we take so that if at all we do not have any of these kind of accidents happening again on our roads or anywhere else where we occupy?
Yeah, first of all, what we need to do, you need to understand, we need to do a study. We have already we are a member of the United Nations, and there are also policies when it comes to safety from other nations. We bring it down. We do our study of our environment. We understand that, okay, this Nigeria, these are the things that we need to do. We need to make sure that, okay, the road is good. After the road, we even have what we call traffic volume document that will know that, okay, how many trucks or how many cars are on the road for us to put this into measures. Also, we need to come down and say, okay, fine, like you said, inspections of these trucks. That's why we have the DOT, Department of Transportation, that will do their work when it comes to this truck. You make sure that they are equipped, they have the right policies for them to use. Then also you need to educate the road users to understand, okay, this is why we said you need to leave the road at a particular time of the day. Let them understand the danger attached to the things they are facing on the road.
Right.
When they have that, when they have that information, they also be conscious of what they are facing on the road. If I ask now, if a tanker is carrying a PMS and an AGO, then also a gas, how can you identify that this one is a gas or this one is an AGO? We don't have such guidelines. So we need to put all those things on the table so that when we know, everybody will be aware. Then the media also help us to say, okay, this and this is things you need to understand when it comes to safety.
All right, point taking that, Adegboyega. Now, Ehiden, to cap it up all up, what is your summary?
The first point is to make the government domesticate all those charters and conventions that they're signing with United Nations and ILO, domesticate those things. Yes. Make them be part of our local laws. Having done this, make enforcement, when you have the laws now, make enforcement to be very tight, strict enforcement. Create advocacy, like you said, awareness amongst the people.
Right.
Create standard and guidelines. When those guidelines are valuable, people have what you call guiding principles which they have to work with. And this we don't have right now. That's why you see the accident and this risk are becoming prevalent. And once that happens, violators should be used as examples. When we don't have scapegoats, in most countries, it's consequences that drive safety. And those that have violated this process in time past, nobody talked to them. Nothing happened to them. So Mr. B that's watching will just say, okay, if Mr. A violated this process, he was never penalized. then it's my turn to validate the process. And people get to die. But while we signed off on this, we're talking about this accident that happened on Thursday because it's what we saw. But I tell you, people die in healthcare every day more than the figure you saw that happened in that accident. That's an area nobody is touching. The healthcare has become so unsafe and so risky for people. Negligence has become a critical part of our healthcare system, and people go into hospitals and they're not sure if they're going to come out. So there are a lot of issues that we have to be dealing with. We have to start making framework. We have to be let's be realistic. Let's own up to what we are facing, and let's leadership walk their talk. If we can do this, we'll have a better nation.
Well, so much issues we need to look at in terms of occupational safety standards in Africa. Thank you very much, Ehi Iden, Coordinator, Occupational Safety and Health Africa. We appreciate your analysis on the show. And I'd also like to thank my guest via Skype, Adegboyega Adebayo. Thank you very much for all you've contributed on the program as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
While it is hard to come across a nation in Africa where protective precautionary standards are unheard of, systems to ensure their observance and adherence are often weak and under-resourced. At a time when it is much easier to rob values in order to fund development, Africa must adopt a paradigm shift where people don't have to count their blessings at the expense of their safety. And that's our package for today. But don't forget to join the conversation as usual on Twitter at TVC News NG, and also follow me for updates around Africa at Esther TVC News. On to the next one, I am Esther Omokwariola, and always remember, Africa can only get better.